The bandsaw really is our most flexible power tool. Not only can it cut nice straight lines, ripping, cross-cutting, you can resaw it, but it does give you that curve flexibility. Whether it be you are roughing out a bow blank or just cutting fine scrolling work, all that can be done on the bandsaw fairly easily and safely. But actually cutting the curves does take some practice, and there are a few tricks to make it a little bit easier. Now, I do have two tip videos already out, and number 17 is a more important one because it tells you some hand positioning techniques so you won't hurt yourself on the bandsaw. If you haven't checked that one out, I do suggest you go check it out also. Now, the first thing you need to understand is you are limited by the blade you are using. Just like a sports car versus a limousine. A little Miata can turn a tighter corner than a big, huge, long, extended Hummer. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't tricks to get around that one. So if you're like me and you generally just leave a 1/2 inch, skip 3 tooth per inch blade on it for all your roughing work and stuff, because you treat the bandsaw as a roughing tool, then you can make tight curves and rough shapes with the bandsaw and then refine it with a hand tool for your joinery or your furniture pieces. The bandsaw to me is a rough cutting tool, and I'll try and show you some tips to use it for the tighter stuff. But if you're doing a lot of scrolling work, a smaller blade will work out. Here's why. If you have a very large blade, it's got its teeth and then it's got the long thickness right there. Well, it can turn a curve roughly the size of its blade minus the curve. See, the curve is going to hit that blade right there and come forward. Where a smaller blade will have the same problems, but that blade won't bottom out in the middle of the curve. And that's what you're dealing with. So let's work around that on the bandsaw today. So I've drawn some curves on this board. I have a nice concave and a convex, and then I have a squiggle all the way around. The key thing you need to remember is generally when you're laying stuff out for bandsaw use, especially freehanding it with your hands, the line is part of the wood that you want to keep. So we're going to try and snug up right next to this line. Now, these are 90-degree cuts on this one. Generally, I find that to be the best, and if I do need to add an angle or a curve to it at a later date, I'll do that with hand tools. So here we go. I've set my fence up, my shield up, so I got just a little bit of the blade coming through and it's not going to bind up underneath. And I'm going to use my hands in the finger fence position just like I told you earlier. But the main trick that you need to think about is to not stare at your front tire. Every single new bicycler or motorcycle rider, it seems like they focus right down at their front tire. That means that everything that's coming up into them, it just happens so fast. They have no reaction time, and things get really hectic, and they cramp up, and they stress out, and they crash. And that's especially true of mountain bikers. I mean, you really want to look down the trail. You know where your front tire is. It's not going to move unless you move the handlebars. So by looking down the trail or looking through the corner, you can see where you want to go, and everything kind of slows down and you can anticipate stuff. It makes things a lot easier. Well, when people are cutting curves on the bandsaw, so many times do they focus right on the teeth. And that's already too late. Things are happening too fast there. You need to look back to where you want to go with the blade and let your peripheral vision understand where the teeth are cutting. The blade's not going to move, but the board will. So that's what we need to focus on. So when I'm cutting this curve, yes, I will make sure that the first tooth engages, just like I go on this right where I want to, but then I'm actually looking over in this area and I'm making sure that it's feeding into the blade, that I can see the curvature reaching towards a blade. That way everything happens slowly and easily for me. So let me turn on the vac and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Looking at the teeth, I'm looking ahead of the teeth. If I go off of it, So the saw teeth are actually set to the either side. You can actually use that to advance. So I can actually come over here and lay the board right on the side, and if I notice, right as it engages, I'm staring at the teeth at that point, the white starts to come away. And then I can bring my focus down here and feed it into that side of the tooth. I'm not actually pressing against the blade sideways. I'm coming into the front of the blade with that angle I'm doing. It's the focus of the curve that I'm working on. Staring up here and focusing of entering that curve into the teeth. Now that side of the tooth action is also how I'm going to get rid of the center section. I'll actually come in and remove it by lines, recesses, and then use the sides of the teeth to clean it up. Now, a good idea to practice this kind of technique is just find a piece of scrap wood and make some squiggly lines, and then have one section that you're going to remove, and then just kind of cut them all off. I like to start out with a gentle curve, giving me a chance to really focus on my concave and convex curves, and then as I come closer, I have to use a lot of these other techniques, whether it be using the side of the teeth or hogging it out, going in, removing waste, to get the tighter curves. It's actually not something you should do a lot if you haven't been playing around with it, but you can actually cut ever so slightly, kind of plane off a little bit by going backwards on the blade. You just need to make sure that you don't catch on the blade and pull it off the rollers. So I'm basically using the back side of the teeth that are splayed either way. So there you go, a few tips and techniques for cutting the curves on the bandsaw. Take into account the blade you're using. Don't try and cut too tight a radius. Focus on the wood entering the blade. Don't focus right where the blade is cutting. You can see that in your peripheral vision. Focus on the path to entry. Then you can cut tighter curves by focusing on relief cuts and whittling it away. And if you miss your line and you need to whittle a little bit off and kind of plane it back, you can do that one off the back of the set of the tooth of the blade. So go out to the shop, experiment, try it out. A little bit of practice will return a lot of good results later on down the road. So for today's bonus, I want to talk about Patrick's Blood and Gore website. No, it's a cool website, but before we do that one, if this is your first time here, please like, favorite, subscribe, do all those social medias. They really do help us out. And if you've been getting some benefit from this series or some of my longer series, the ones I'm more known for doing, please consider visiting our website, wortheffort.com. Not only do I have a lot more content there, but I can show you different ways you can patronize us so that it helps fund us making these videos for you. So, Patrick Leach, in a subsection of his supertool.com website, has written up basically a history of the Stanley planes, all the numbered ones you can go through. And it's really cool if you have a plane and you kind of want to understand when it was made. Was it made in the late 1800s or 1900s? What are the different features in changing in the different generations of them, and even a lot of the specialty and experimental planes that Stanley made are listed here. And it's a great way to waste a little time learning a little history, all the nuances, and it kind of makes the planes and the tools you own that you discover all the details about them worth a little bit more to you. Visit. It's Patrick's Blood and Gore webpage or website within supertool.com. And Patrick runs kind of a newsletter where he sells vintage tools that he finds and restores. Check it out. It's a lot of fun.